Biodiesel. My name is Heather Getch. I'm with Wisconsin Clean Cities. I'll be moderating. And Stephanie Smith with South Shore Clean Cities is also joining us. She'll be doing controls. Please note that this is being recorded, so if you have any objections, you feel free to leave now. And please save all questions till the end. There's a question box in the prompt. Feel free to type them in there. So starting out today is Robert Stensberg and Summers Long. They work with Fusion Renewables. They are a marketing, blending, and distribution company focused on supplying to customers the chain of biofuels products, including ethanol, biodiesel, vegetable oils, catalysts, and other blend stocks. They're going to be giving a great overview of the blending process and petrol biodiesel. So with that, we'll turn it over to Robert and Summers.
With Fusion Renewables on quality control and logistics here, and Summers Long is here with me. So our associate Eric DeBruin compiled this PowerPoint presentation for you today. It's very simple. We're just going to run through it page by page and then add any anecdotes or any information, projects that we're working on here in downtown Milwaukee. So without further ado, biodiesel and blending biodiesel with petroleum diesel. Can everyone see my screen? Heather, can you verify you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So basically, biodiesel is a fuel comprised of monoalkyl esters of long-chain fatty acids derived from vegetable oils or animal fats, designated B100, 100% biodiesel, and meeting the requirements of ASTM D6751. It's made through a chemical process called transesterification, whereby glycerin is separated from the fats or vegetable oils. Biodiesel is the name of a clean-burning alternative fuel produced from domestic renewable sources. Biodiesel contains no petroleum, but it can be blended at any level with petroleum diesel to create a biodiesel blend. It can be used in compression, ignition diesel engines with little or no modifications. And biodiesel is simple to use, biodegradable, non-toxic, and essentially free of sulfur and aromatics. How is biodiesel green? Which is a common question we still get today, even though it's prefixed with biodiesel. Biodiesel is safe to handle and non-toxic. Emissions from biodiesel have been shown to contain less carbon monoxide, 48% less, particulate matter, 47% less, and hydrocarbons, 67%, the leading cause of localized smog. B100 reduces the cancer-causing agents in exhaust, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH, and nitrated PAH by 80%, and B20, which is 20% biodiesel, 80% diesel, by 18%. Biodiesel acts as a better solvent, adding needed lubricity to diesel fuel, and this will help clean up old fuel tanks. And lastly here, and I think more importantly to us, is that biodiesel is produced from domestic renewable sources right here in Milwaukee. And Summers can talk a little bit about that with our UCO collection initiative we kicked off in 2011. So I'll hand it off to Summers here briefly to talk about that.
Yeah, so here in Milwaukee we have a company, sort of a sub-company of Fusion Renewables called Cream City Biofuels. And part of that is we take in used cooking oil from in and around the Milwaukee area, as far out as Chicago. I guess the radius reaches out that far. Local collectors will bring in their used cooking oil, and we will process it, and we will basically take the water and filter it, take the water out and all the particulates out of there. And in order for it to be turned into biodiesel, it has to be, well, processors like them to be 2% less water. MIU, basically you want your oil to be 2% water and solubles and unsaponifiables. So, for instance, this past summer we processed about 500,000 gallons of cooking oil from in and around the area, and we sent that off to get made into biodiesel, which then got turned and brought back to us. And that's where the blending comes in. So, you want to go to the next slide there.
I think they're having a little bit of a tough time here. Summers, why don't you come a little bit closer?
So, when we're talking about blending biodiesel, you have to be aware of, number one thing, you have to be aware of the weather. When you run biodiesel, it tends to cloud up at cold temperatures, especially once it starts to drop below 35 degrees, you can find that it starts to cloud up. So what you want to do to counteract that is you want to blend your biodiesel in. The main blends for the winter, a B20 is the most common. There's virtually no difference in performance, engine performance, power with a B20 blend. We have a lot of people that come here and fill up, and even during the winter, some people have gone as high as a B30, and they've started even a little above a B30, and they've found no problems. Also, market conditions also can have an effect on the biodiesel. It sort of fluctuates just like regular diesel does at the pump. Right now, our biodiesel is $3.60 a gallon, so it's about 60 to 70%, or 60 to 70 cents less, than regular diesel at the pump. And like I said before, fuel mileage is pretty much almost identical to diesel fuel. You're not really going to notice any difference when you put a B20 in your tank rather than just regular diesel. So basically, the most important point there is just to make sure that when you're using your biodiesel in the wintertime, you want to make sure that the blend is appropriate for the temperatures. And a couple of temperature points here. A B20 is good down to about 29 degrees. And like I said, we've seen people have no problems with even colder temperatures with that blend. B50, 39 degrees and above, and the B99, 49 degrees and above. And during the summer, you have no problems with it. You don't have to blend it if you don't want to. You can use a B100 in your car. And a lot of people here, and we see that a lot of people here do that, and they have no problems. So then we have, where is biodiesel being used today in the U.S.? It's going to be used in many different sectors. For what we deal in, we use mostly trucking fleets come here and they fill up their trucks. We actually have, it's funny, I actually use some biodiesel in our heating oil furnace here at the office. But it's used widely around the country. The U.S. military uses a lot of biodiesel, and as you can see on this little slide here, there's quite a little diversity when it comes to the sectors where they use it.
This last slide is a chart that we grabbed from the NBB website, the National Biodiesel Board. And so it kind of gives you a history of the biodiesel production in this country, and obviously over the last 5 to 6 years, the production has increased dramatically, which is a good deal. The bottom we describe biodiesel is produced from soy oil, animal tallow, corn oil, used cooking oil, canola oil, palm oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, algae oil, and the list seems to increase. In Milwaukee here, with Fusion Renewables, we've typically dealt with soy-based biodiesel, corn-based biodiesel, a little bit of canola oil-based biodiesel. And Summers had described our used cooking oil collection process. We have a relationship with the biodiesel toll processor is about 100 miles away. And so we really try to raise the importance and awareness of used cooking oil-based biodiesel. So that's been exciting for us. So a couple other projects that we've been involved with here in Milwaukee is that we are very close to finishing construction on our blending rack. So we'll have the capabilities to offer basically custom blends for the customer's needs here. And I think, did you talk about the Biodiesel Club at all? We have a Biodiesel Club down here that we started several months ago and opened it up to specifically, immediately the Bayview area, but we have customers that come from all over the city and the outlying suburbs. And so that's been really exciting for us to kind of offer at a grassroots level. So, and then another project that Summers will speak to is our retail station.
Yeah, with the Biodiesel Club, it's sort of a it's more of a large-scale operation that we're trying to get implemented down here on Jones Island in Milwaukee. Basically, what we're trying to do, we have, like Rob said, we have a Biodiesel Club, which consists of about 1,000-gallon tank, and our sort of goal is to get that going. And once we started emptying that tank out on a regular basis, then we could sort of see about growing into something bigger. So our project now is sort of centered on getting a retail station down here with a, basically you would just pull up to it like you would at the gas station with a pump and a card reader, and you would just swipe your credit card and pump and go. And we would be selling a B99, which is 99% biodiesel. The advantage of that is people can make their own blends. People, it's called splash blending. People can go and they can get diesel at wherever they get diesel from. We also have a diesel pump by another company right next to where we are, literally a stone's throw away. And so in the wintertime, say if it's 15 degrees outside, you can fill up your car with diesel and then come splash a 20% blend on top of that with biodiesel. So yeah, that's our baby right now. We're trying to get that going, and hopefully that'll be up and running pretty soon, and then people can come down here and purchase biodiesel at their leisure.
And with that, I believe any questions will be saved to the end. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Robert and Summers. And just one quick question. What if someone wanted to become a member of your Biodiesel Club? Can they simply drive up and use it, or how does that work?
You can see that, that email address right there on the screen. If you shoot him the email currently, we are, the way we do it is you fill out an application, and then you prepay on PayPal, and then you come down here and just sort of hack away at your predetermined amount that you've purchased. That is going to change once we get the retail station up and going. You just drive down here and use a credit card. But for now, shoot Eric an email, and then he will forward it to me, and then we can just come down here, fill out an application, and we're good to go.
All right, great.
Thank you.
All right, up next we have David Lynch. He's with SunPower Biodiesel. They're located in Cumberland, Wisconsin. They're an integrated agriculture energy company and marketer of premier renewable fuel products, including biodiesel. So David is going to tell us all about what's going on up at SunPower.
Good morning. My name is David Lynch. I am the president of the SunPower Biodiesel Company in Cumberland, Wisconsin. SunPower is a small portion of another company. The parent company is Artisan. We are a seasonal manufacturer of seasonal products, and you can kind of see there's some of the logos that brands that we sell under. Some that might be familiar to you are Eskimo ice fishing equipment, ice augers and ice shelters, river's edge tree stands, which are for deer hunters, ladders and fixed position stands. We also manufacture our lawn and garden equipment under the brand name Earthquake. That would be rototillers, mini cultivators, log splitters, chainsaws, chipper shredders. Other less known brands, Yukon Trax is a line of fur hats, and U-Trax are aluminum ATV ramps and pickup ramps. A little history on the company. As it was started in 1960, the two brothers that own it now took over in 1990, and I joined them then. We've every day look for new products to manufacture, not large volumes, just niche market, seasonal things. So that's what that is. But as China made the decision to be the manufacturer of the world. We were a targeted industry. In the late 90s, there were summers that we had 60, 70, 80 people welding tree stands. Today, we may have 2 welders on staff, that's it. So our manufacturing disappeared, went to China. Our jobs here in Cumberland changed from welders and assemblers and painters to now we're in 1999 we probably had 2 engineers on staff. Today we have 8 or 9, maybe even 12 engineers. Logistics people, just to handle shipping containers from China to the United States, there's 4 of those people. And then quality control, late 90s, we didn't even have a quality department. Now there's 6 people in quality. Just the United States, there's probably another 4 or 5 quality people in China. We do have a presence in China. We have 2 U.S. citizens that pretty much live there full time and manage an office in Shanghai. And as the staff that we have, many of us travel to China for production issues, delivery issues, and quality issues. So with that in mind, we still had facilities in Cumberland and we wanted employment in Cumberland, so we started looking at items that could not be exported to China, and biodiesel was one item, farming was another item. So we started DRM farms. We farm about 4,000 acres up here now. And the biodiesel was kind of an offshoot from that. We started looking at what what it would take to make biodiesel, and getting control of the feedstock was a major one. Where we're located, there aren't very many palm trees up here, so we picked on canola. And so the typical canola field is this. Up in this one is up by Ashland. As I said, we farm 4,000 acres, but of 4,000 acres, in any given year, you can only have a small portion of that in canola. There's some issues with mold if you go year after year, so you have to rotate it. We rotate it with wheat for the most part, and in the last 2 years we rotated up that far north with corn. From our area south, it's soybeans. From here north, it's more canola growing area. As the genetics change and the climate changes, soybeans will go further north also. So like I said, we're a fully integrated company. We farm it, we built a small extraction plant, and we can handle about a little over 100,000 pounds a week of canola. That's just a small portion of the biodiesel we make. 100,000 pounds would be 35,000 pounds of oil. From this 30,000 pounds of oil, it's crude oil, so there'll be some soaps and gums that are taken out. We purify it and then send it through. The meal goes. The dry part of it is a high quality feed. We leave about 7% fat in the meal. That goes to turkey farmers in the area. So it's I'm kind of lost on the thing. This is it doesn't do 100% of what we need to do. So, but it does about a quarter of the amount of oil that we need to run our processor. Our processor is a continuous flow, 3 million gallon a year plant. We pretty much have dedicated it to using only crude vegetable oil, canola, and soy. And we're running, to get 3 million gallons, you run about 6.5 to 7.5 gallons a minute, and to maintain quality. And basically the thing was commissioned in 2008. We've been on and off because of different rules and changes in government specs over the year, or ASTM specs. Last year we ran pretty consistent throughout the year, and we're hoping to do the same thing again this year. Up here, it's a seasonal product. It's pretty quiet December, January, and February. Starting March, it seems to pick up a little bit. So, this is a copy of our C of A analysis that we put out. Our goal is to make ASTM D6751 quality specs. There's 19 of them on a spec, and we have an extensive laboratory to monitor our quality, put out the best we can. Some of the things we pride ourselves in is the cloud point. We run our cloud point somewhere below -3, -4, -5 in that area. If you're using palm oil or peanut oil, it might be a +10. One of the things, before I forget, is water and filter plugging. Biodiesel in itself, made to ASTM D6751, will not plug a diesel filter. But if you're using an older machine that has lots of petroleum oil go through, there may be water or moisture in the bottom of your tanks, either in your vehicle tanks or in your storage tanks. And when you add biodiesel to it, biodiesel is hydroscopic. It's going to pick up that moisture and carry it to your filter and plug your filter. But we've had experience when you bring a different truck in and it has water in it, 1 or 2 filters, and then you're good to go. So as far as what we run for blends on that, we in our farming operation, we have 4 or 5 large tractors. In the summertime, they run B99. We have a 4-wheel drive 9200 John Deere. It's running B99 all summer long. The fuel truck you see on the screen, that runs B99. We have 4 semi-trucks on the road. In the summertime, they're B99. In the wintertime, they're B20. And they're sent all over the country. And locally, we have 3 in-town trucks that are running. We also have probably, I was told, about 30 employees with diesel vehicles now running, and in the wintertime it's B20, in the summer they'll go to B99. Some of those are company cars, some of those for salesmen, some of those are personal vehicles. So, as far as retail stations, like I said, we're integrated from top to bottom. We're going to farm it, we take it all the way to the retail level. Outside the window here, we have the blending station on the left, and today that's offering B11 and B20 blends. April 1st, we'll turn on the B99 button, and they'll be able to get B99 right out of that. This is credit card or Pro Key, either one. We have fleets like school buses. The Cumberland school bus system uses our fuel. They're using B20 all winter long this winter, no problems. They have a Pro Key. Each bus has a Pro Key. They stick it in there, punch in their code, and fill up. We have several garbage trucks and several truckers that stop at the station. The station on the right is in Duluth. That was our second station. That actually has 4 pumps, and that's been a pretty good station for us. It has a regular couple hundred gallons a day going out of those pumps. In the future, we hope to add several. We're looking at Rice Lake for one station, the old Walmart store. We're going to put a station in there this summer, and then we're looking elsewhere in the area for locations for blending pumps. Just as an example, here's what's offered. The summer blends, B11, B20, B99, that's at the pumps. The winter blends, only B11 and B20 are available, and they do have a cold flow additive. By the way, the B20 is tested by Mid-Continental Chemical. They do the third-party analysis for us, and we're running that at a cloud point of -35 with a B20 blend. So that's pretty good. The B11, off the top of my head, I don't remember what the cloud point on that is. And that pretty much matches the diesel sold up here in the wintertime, the blended fuel at the local stations. Future projects. One of the future projects we're doing, besides the canola crush plant, we're building a soybean crush plant to crush whatever quantity, maybe another 30 to 40,000 gallons of oil per week out of soybeans. We're also looking at additional stations within a 50-mile range of here, so it would be as far as Ladysmith to the east, St. Croix Falls to the west, Spooner north of us. Those are some of the goals. Internally, we're aiming for BQ 9000 quality assurance program, and I brought on a Dr. Jun Lee Lau. He's a chemist, and he brings in a couple things, a couple items. One of his expertise is to get biodiesel to a cloud point of -50. So he has a process that, a published process, a patented published process that will remove the longer chain hydrocarbons and make biodiesel match kerosene or number one petrodiesel specs, and that's probably about it. So, and Heather, any other questions?
No, not right now, but thank you very much, David, for that great overview of what's going on up at SunPower. David was mentioning about the BQ 9000 certification, and I wanted to make sure to mention that Fusion Renewables is a BQ 9000 certified marketer. Next up on our webinar here, Jeff Tews. He is a fleet operations manager for the city of Milwaukee. They've been using biodiesel for a number of years, and he's going to give us an overview of what they're using it in, of the vehicles, and a little bit of the history. Jeff. Jeff, we can't hear you. Are you muted on your phone? Great.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. Real quickly, I'm the fleet manager for the City of Milwaukee. My name is Jeff Tews. The City of Milwaukee basically has 123 different types of equipment, and that's basically anything from A to W in this case. And that includes 929 pieces of diesel equipment. Our annual usage of diesel fuel is about 1 million to 1.2 million gallons per year. Let's see if I can get control of my computer now. And there we go. Okay, like everybody else, we faced the uncertainty of fuel costs, and we've had the highs and lows, so we've been looking towards all sorts of alternative fuel types whenever possible, and biodiesel for us was such a smart answer because it was something we could put into our fleet right now as opposed to making any kind of modifications or waiting to buy compressed natural gas vehicles and then having to have a place to fuel them. So the biodiesel made the most amount of sense to us, and for many reasons, in addition to the cost at one time was a bit lower than the diesel, or depending on the crop year, you may have had fluctuations up and down. But we also have the green team in the City of Milwaukee, which was set up by the mayor to explore ways to clean the air and reduce our dependency on foreign oil, amongst many other targets. It includes not just vehicles, but also our buildings and our infrastructure as well. Basically, we started using biodiesel in 2006, and we've been using it ever since. In 2007, when they kicked in with the first use of ultra-low sulfur diesel, we added B2 to all of our tanks as a matter of course, just to make up for the loss of lubricity that you had with the ULSD. We've been using various blends from B2 to B20. We've used well over 650,000 gallons of B100 mixed in various blends within our fleet. We used 102,750 gallons in 2012. So we use it as a supplement, and it's also partially subsidized in many cases through grants that the City of Milwaukee has received. I'm not going to go over any of these in great detail because I think you've seen them, but the one thing that I feel is kind of important for us to point out is that you see all the different sources of biodiesel base stock here. And what we've been trying to concentrate on is soybean oil and corn oil. Canola is a little expensive for us, and then some of the animal fats and the palm kernel oils have such a high gel point that we really don't want to consider using them in this area for fear of basically grounding our fleet. We're the people who have to go out and plow the snow and collect the garbage and do everything else that has to get done in all temperatures, and we operate whenever we have to. The people out there repairing water main breaks, if it means you're out there on Christmas Eve and it's 24 below, they're going to be out there doing it, but they have to have equipment that's going to run. So for the most part, we're sticking with a specification that requires whatever the base stock, it has to have a cloud point rating of minus, I should say, 3 degrees Celsius, or it's about 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. And it also has to meet the requirements of ASTM D6751. We also insist that our biodiesel is either produced by or sold by a BQ 9000 accredited producer or certified marketer. We do recognize that B20 blends are commonly accepted as being accepted by engine manufacturers. There are a couple out there still that are telling you you want to stick to 5% because otherwise we're not going to warranty your engine in case of any kind of a failure. Now it's very difficult for someone to prove that you were using anything other than what they manufacture or recommend. Nonetheless, it's usually a good fight every time you're trying to get involved with a warranty issue. Now we actually do have some equipment that does not allow the use of biodiesel whatsoever. And in particular, I'm thinking of this one piece of equipment where it actually uses the oil, or the diesel fuel, if you will, for both for the engine of the unit and for the burner that's on board. It's a mobile unit that is made for basically cleaning streets with hot water. So it's a hot water boiler. It sprays it down under great pressure and then immediately sucks it right up again. It's great for getting oil off of the streets where you've had an oil spill, as opposed to having to use an absorbent and then sweeping it up and disposing of that as hazardous waste. But that manufacturer will not allow the use of any biodiesel whatsoever. Now, everybody is well aware of the advantages to the environment of using biodiesel, and we're no exception. Nonetheless, we have noticed in many cases that there was a period when we started using biodiesel where the detergent factor of that bio basically did a very good job of cleaning the inside of the fuel system, the storage tanks on the vehicle. In addition, the storage tanks underground, and we found that we had a huge uptick in filter replacement. Whereas before we started changing the filters, and we had approximately 107 per year, and that was throughout the fleet. This was basically due to contamination of some sort, water in the fuel or whatever. But we had that huge uptick to 227 as soon as we started using this, and we went up to about 317 or a 72% increase from that. But all of a sudden, everything started getting cleaner, and we started coming back down. So in essence, yes, it's a detergent, but it gets the job done. It cleans things up, and then it's like, okay, you're running like you were before. We haven't really noticed any kind of power issues as well. One of the things, though, that we did find is that we have to be very careful with our underground storage tank, the condition of all of these tanks and what's in them. So we started taking a real close look at the diesel fuel within. We started pulling bacon bomb samples and started checking things out in August, and we found that it took us a couple of months to get things cleaned up. We'd add either a drying agent, or if you didn't have that much water, you just had to be careful about the bacteria levels, so you'd use some sort of a biocide to kill any bacteria in there that was feasting on whatever's in the fuel. We did find, though, that biodiesel tends to attract water a little bit, and because of it, our maintenance schedules are a little bit heavier than they used to be, where we got to make sure we're not going to have any trouble. Again, we sort of talked about this, and the tank designs indeed make it kind of impossible to really remove that water. You can get stuff off of the bottom, but you're never going to get rid of all of it. And you're also getting a little bit of moisture coming in from the vents as well. We also had, we read about in Government Fleet Magazine that there's been an uptick in corrosion in fuel storage tanks, depending on what it's made out of, or the piping that leads to your dispensing equipment as well. And we're still not sure exactly where this is, but we have heard tell of a lubricity additive that was added to the ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel may have something to do with it, along with reducing the additive was used to reduce the static electricity, but that was one of the things that they believe could be part of the problem, along with improper cathodic protection for these underground tanks. Now in the slide right there, it's kind of a G-rated version of a phone call that I got one time, where a guy was talking about the biodiesel, and it's responsible for his agricultural tractor out at the municipal nursery basically running very poorly. What was happening is he could idle fine, but as soon as he stepped on it, he started losing power. Well, what we found is that when they actually pulled the fuel filter, and went down into the tank, we found that little crabapple fruit on the right there, along with that that stem. That crabapple fruit was actually acting like a float, and it was actually preventing enough fuel from going through during demand situations, like when you step on the accelerator or where you've got an implement in the ground and you're trying to start, churn over some soil or whatever. So the same thing would happen if you're on the road with a piece of equipment and you needed a heavy demand for fuel. At that point, the unit ran like crap. So, but I made sure that he saw this picture, because it really was a problem with them not really cleaning the area around the fuel inlet, and when they opened it up and started fueling, anything that was in the area just sort of got into the fuel tank. We also are very cautious with regards to the cold weather operation, and then I noticed that in many cases you might have trouble finding any kind of B99 during the winter months. We run pretty much from October 15th to April 15th is our cold season, as we call it, because we could get snow at any time and temperatures could drop, and, well, if you live in this area. So we insist that our specification put the onus on the fuel supplier, that whoever that would be, they provide fuel to us that is capable of maintaining a cold filter plug point of -30 below Fahrenheit, plus or minus 4 degrees. And if they have to determine what type of additive and how much to put in, we do put that onus on our fuel supplier, because he's the first person we're going to call, he or she, when we're not running and we find out that our fuel is gelling. So this is part of our specification, and it would be a recommendation that I would make to anybody, is to make sure that you're taking a certain amount of ownership and holding your vendors responsible for it as well. Now, obviously, there's increased cost depending on the year. Last year, I think there was a time when soy-based biodiesel was costing about $8.10 a gallon. That made it very difficult for us to continue running B20 because of our fuel budget. And like everybody else, we just can't spend whatever we want on fuel. We've got to live within our means as well. Fortunately, this year, the federal blending tax credit is back, and then the value of the RINs is actually a little bit higher. I know that this fluctuates quite a bit, but in essence, this combination of the tax credit and the RINs actually helps us to keep our costs a lot lower. Right now, our typical cost for B100 in this area, I think this is soy-based as well, is $4.42 a gallon. So that makes it a lot more advantageous to ramp up our use of biodiesel again. Typically, what we have been doing, because we're still a little gun shy of the problems that were reported in Minnesota back in 2007, 2008, when they had 10% biodiesel. They found a lot of glycerin in their biodiesel, and it plugged everybody's fuel filters up. But that was a statewide thing, if I'm not mistaken. We're still a little gun shy from that, so we're cautious, and that's only because we have so much equipment here. And if we have a problem with our biodiesel, it could affect 929 pieces of equipment that are just not going to be running. So we're a little bit careful, but we do hope to ramp up to B20 year-round. Now, in closing, of course, for us, biodiesel is one of many viable alternative fuel choices. In addition, we're running propane, compressed natural gas. We have not run ethanol yet, but ethanol is kind of hard to find in the Milwaukee area right now. But new developments are announced continuously, such as what we just heard one presenter ago with regards to the fact that they're hoping to get the cloud point of biodiesel much lower than it is, which would be great. It is up to the fleet manager to stay abreast of the recent developments and potential costs, because we have to find the sweet spot between the main factors, which is range, payload, and the cost of infrastructure. There are countless resources available, and things are being announced every day, as we found out today. But for every reported problem, there may be a solution out there as well. So I thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jeff. This is a great overview of what's happening in the city. Our next speaker is Dean DeVoe. He's with North Central Co-op down in Indiana. He's an energy specialist, and the North Central Co-op is an agribusiness cooperative headquartered in Wabash, Indiana. They serve business, government, and agriculture customers in over 25 counties in northern and central Indiana and southern and western Michigan. Dean specializes in diesel fuel, gasoline, and lubricant sales for the co-op and has developed a strong emphasis in the area of renewable and alternative fuels. And now he's going to talk to us about what's going on in the co-op down in Indiana.
Thank you. This is Dean DeVoe, and appreciate the opportunity to be with the group today. We are a marketer and also a user of biodiesel products. One of the things I'm going to experiment with here is I'm getting some feedback in my phone, and I may try the computer screen because I'm hearing myself about a second. Let me ask you a question, Heather. Is this working now?
Yes.
All right. I will take care of that approach. Our co-op system in Indiana has been involved since the early 90s in biodiesel marketing. And in northern Indiana's North Central Co-op, we've been very strongly promoting the use of various blends of biodiesel. The refinery, of which we are one of the owners, is Country Mart Co-op, headquartered in Indianapolis. The refinery is based in Mount Vernon, Indiana. And one of the things I always like to share is that while renewable fuels is strongly promoting their usage so that we can displace foreign crude oil, we've been doing that since 1940 when the refinery was built, because we only use 100% American crude oil. It only comes from southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and also western Kentucky. So as a result of that, 100% of the hydrocarbon fuel that we sell is already displacing foreign crude oil or other sources, but then the renewable fuels, and especially biodiesel, then just tremendously helps us in doing that. In our usage, we have storage tanks at all of our sites. We cover about 25 counties, and we have well over 300 vehicles used in delivery of various agricultural products to customers and commercial accounts and government accounts. But we also have 16 unattended fueling islands. And so over the years, we have always utilized, since the early 90s, some form of biodiesel, but really the Country Mart system started back in the early 90s down there with the Indianapolis International Airport, doing some work and studying with them. And then they were the first ones that basically in Indiana to offer soy biodiesel with the blend starting in about 2000. So from 2000 on, about the last 13 years, we've been involved in some form of biodiesel blend starting with 2%. The last couple of years, all of our inventory is B5. And then at a number of our unattended stations, we also have B20 pumps. We don't have B20 inventory tanks at every one of our unattended fueling islands, so we're not able to cover the entire area. I will say that we have schools, we have some city bus systems, and some other organizations that are using B20. We have the capability of delivering transport loads of B20 directly from the Country Mart terminals. But in our own bulk plants for our straight trucks that we deliver product with, B5 is all that we're able to do right now just because of some inventory tank limitations. I'm really grateful that all the speakers ahead of time talked an awful lot about BQ9000. We spend an awful lot of time doing research and education trying to make sure how we can sell, how can we promote, how can we overcome maybe somebody's biases and perceptions regarding biodiesel. And we would be the first ones to say that the quality of biodiesel has changed dramatically over the last 10 to 12 years. I run into an awful lot of mechanics and other end users who have a perception, may not be based on fact, but it's something they heard, or maybe they thought somebody experienced something because of biodiesel, when in fact it was a different and unrelated problem, but biodiesel seems to get blamed or associated with some of the problems. And as was related earlier about the Minnesota issues back in 2006, 2007, that truly was a situation that happened at that time, but it was also pretty much in conjunction with the offering of ultra-low sulfur diesel, or really the requirement of ultra-low sulfur diesel, and the chemistry in the winterization packages were not behaving the same way they were back with low sulfur and certainly high sulfur diesel. So you have to really be a researcher, you got to be a detective to really get into what are the real issues of it. What we have found is that there are a number of people, a number of organizations that really subscribe to the use of B20 as a blend, and certainly other blends, because of the benefits that have already been described today, whether it's an improvement in air quality. Certainly it's been well known that the improvement in lubricity with the B2 blend, and perhaps up to the B5, you know, at some point in time that improvement in lubricity will kind of straight line, and you don't get a tremendously big improvement with B20, obviously, but down at the B2 and perhaps up to the B5 level, you do see that loss of lubricity being replaced, you know, with the use of the biodiesel product. We really spend an awful lot of time in education. Last year, we in CountryMark, along with the Indiana Soybean Association, did a training program for mechanics, and brought in a variety of mechanic end users to help overcome perceptions and maybe misconceptions about biodiesel. We actually use a mechanic who is a researcher who is also a teacher, and she was able to really do a great job for us for that program. And we're going to be sponsoring with CountryMark and the Indiana Soybean Association 6 seminars this coming year for end users to help overcome perhaps biases and perceptions about you know, the use of biodiesel. Another thing that I strongly recommend is people participating using the resources from the National Biodiesel Board. Every year I attend the National Biodiesel Conference. It was just held in early February this year, and next year it's going to be in late January. But it's a time for producers, marketers, end users to be able to get together to review research, to look at testing, to understand the new uses and applications. It was a very good conference this year, probably the best ever, and that's a time to really sharpen your skills to understand resources that are available. We have used B5, or earlier it was B2, on all of our equipment, as I said, since the early 2000 period of time. The B20 still has a perception. We're not nearly maybe as cold as Milwaukee, but in northern Indiana, the South Bend area, and in lower Michigan, we get a lot of cold weather as well. So the gelling of diesel fuel in general is always something that people talk about, and we've prided ourselves in working with our cold flow application, monitoring the cloud point, and the quality of the diesel fuel has to be matched with the quality of
I apologize. It seems David's audio cut out. It's possible his computer shut down. With that, I would like to open it up for questions. Wayne Gerdes, you had your hand raised. Do you have a question? I'll unmute you. Wayne, you're unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask any of your guests here what they think about the B99 and costs, I heard one gentleman talk about an $8 cost at some point, and forget about all the government subsidies involved, but you know, when the product's $8.99 and you can pick it up for $4.50 or less from the pump, what's the point? And with that swing, does it cause massive disruption in the supply aspect, the people that are making it, you know, or they see these massive changes in product pricing, and all of a sudden one week they had, you know, well, we needed to order 100,000 gallons, and this week we had nothing. I'd like to hear some comments from any of your guests on this.
Any of our panelists, you care to take that?
Well, this is Jeff from the city of Milwaukee, and I made the comment of the soy biodiesel cost at peak period last year was $8.10 a gallon, and obviously that makes it difficult for us to continue to use a product like that. And I'm not even sure really what it's all about. The biodiesel suppliers might have a better handle on that. From what I understand, and this is talking with the Fusion Renewables people here in Milwaukee, last year was a kind of a bad year for biodiesel. I know it had something to do with the blending tax credit that wasn't available, but I think it also was kind of a crop issue too. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody else that might have a handle on that?
This is Dave Lynch. I can speak to it a little bit. Today the price of soybean oil is around 49.5 cents. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've learned that you know, we start watching Chicago Board of Trade for soybean prices every morning. As we got into last fall, the soybean oil prices drifted up to 56 cents, maybe even 57 cents. But the meal price skyrocketed to over 5. I think soybean meal price got to $560 a ton. And when you do the math, you can actually lower your price of your soybean oil down. It offsets. Soybean oil is the co-product to the soybean meal, and you can offset it. So you take the soybean people were taking the profit on the meal and selling soybean oil. So there was a little bit of a ability to make some profit last fall on biodiesel made from soybean oil.
This is Dean DeVoe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We use exclusively biodiesel from soy. The Country Mart system uses the Louis Dreyfus organization. There's actually the large soybean meal and biodiesel plant in our territory. We use that product for a number of reasons, but what I appreciate is there are a lot of other good quality sources of biodiesel B100 as well. But because of us being an agribusiness cooperative, we do like to support the ag industry, number one. Secondly, it's right in the heart of our territory, and the biodiesel, the B100, is bought from Dreyfus to our various terminals. And there was comment earlier about the use of the RINs. And Country Mart, as a refiner, obviously has RIN compliance and needs to use all of the things capable as a result. We do not have any increase in price with any degree of our biodiesel blends. Country Mart is using the RINs. They're going to have to do things necessary as a refiner to meet the necessary EPA compliance areas. So our pricing, whether it's B2, B5, or B20, is one and the same. There is no upcharge for that, and it's been that way now nearly 2 years. So that probably is a function of just our strategy using the soy biodiesel and also how Country Mart is pricing it. But as long as we can do that, it did happen at one time because of the credits. There actually was some savings, and then it went the other way, and it was certainly a surcharge. but for the last couple of years, we've been able to go to the market as the product is the same price regardless of the blend of biodiesel.
We had another question that came in. They're saying for end users, water dilution of crankcase oil, are there any maintenance interval changes?
This is Jeff Tews here from City Milwaukee. We have not noticed any uptick in crankcase water issues. We do on occasion, when we have suspicions, we'll go out and start doing oil sampling. But we also do an oil filter change throughout the year on our heavy diesels. We are using synthetic 5W40 motor oil, and we do keep it in the crankcase for a year. So because of that, we are maintaining a very close look at it. And as an end user, we haven't really noticed any issues there.
One of the tests that were, or the testing that was reported on the Biodiesel Board was really looking at maintenance issues, the use of oil, and at least everybody in our organization strongly recommends that end users use some type of a lube analysis, whether you use biodiesel or not. And we're starting to get some data from end users, and we're not finding any problems. I mean, there's always the fear, there's the wonder, and it's good to check it out, but our end users have not run into problems. But you also got to get a lot more years of experience, I think. We've got plenty of years of regular oil usage, but there were some test results and analysis being reported at the national conference this year.
One of the other things that we've also noticed, though, is that when we do the oil sampling on certain vehicles, we're finding problems in other areas that we're glad we did the sampling for, such as a little bit too much acid from, residue from coolant somehow getting in, so we've been able to diagnose head gasket problems, or a little bit of pitting in the liners and such. So we've found the problems in other areas, but we have not been able to come back and definitively rule that biodiesel had anything to do with problems like that.
Heather, I'd like to make one more comment. This is Dean, and I just wanted to, there was a comment made earlier about OEMs and some of their positions. This is probably the most critical, in that over the last 10 years or so, various engine manufacturers have gradually, some more rapidly than others, accepted and then actually promoted the use of various blends of biodiesel. And I can say, as a seller to end users, one of the big challenges is that when end users have mixed fleets, equipment from various years, you may have the same manufacturer, but they have accepted, and they've gone from a B2 acceptance to a B5 acceptance to a B20 acceptance, maybe over a course of 6, 8, 10 years. Some of the presenters actually at the national conference this year were OEMs, and they went back and reflected what they used to do and now what they do. So nearly all, not certainly 100%, but nearly all of the major engine manufacturers are now endorsing B20, but that's with newer equipment. So you can't take a particular brand and go back perhaps 6 or 8 years and say all Cummins or all Ford or all this or that is at that. So it becomes a difficult thing to analyze, but they've really embraced the biodiesel. There were a number of vehicles on display at the national conference. So I simply point out that if there's people there listening and participating today that are end users, work with your suppliers and OEMs, and you can go to various sources to find out where that acceptance is. But I can tell you, as a dealing with end users, I have to find those charts and say, okay, your 2002 accepted this level, but your 2006 is at this level, and now the new stuff you're getting fully endorses B20. So it's just something to watch for.
Great, thank you, Dean. We did have another question come in. Biodiesel for consumers. Pump sites are a bit messy. Are there any standards on pump cleanliness being discussed amongst suppliers?
I'm not for sure what it means by the site being messy, unless that's just pretty much the history or the perception of diesel in general. When you think of diesel fuel, if it spills, if there's a dripping by the end user, if that's what they're referring to, diesel by its very nature behaves differently than gasoline that is spilled, let's say, or dripped, at the pump. And so I wouldn't say it's because of biodiesel, it's because it's diesel. And it's a constant thing for us to make sure that we're following up our customers. We've got some people who will spend almost the full time going from station to station, making sure that it's cleanly, acceptable, and those kind of things.
Oh, he clarified, he's saying grime, oil, etc. He filled up with some B99 in Arizona, and it was a bit messy, a dirty site. Consumers from gasoline cars will not stand for it, is the comment.
Well, it's a good perception and a good message to retailers that you got to make sure that you don't just look at things through your own eyes. You have to look at things through the eyes of the customer.
Speaking as an end user on this end here, we've also found that just our regular diesel pump locations, if you get that 1 or 2 drips after you, for whatever reason, you get a little bit of spillage from the end of the hose, it tends to attract dirt, and that tends to stain the concrete a little bit more, and it does make it more important to keep it a little bit cleaner. Whereas the gasoline, if that spills, it tends to evaporate very quickly.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have a question? Please feel free to raise your hand or type it into the questions box.
I'd like to add one more comment about the distribution of the biodiesel and making sure that when you're choosing a supplier, this BQ9000 is so very critical, and I heard the other presenters talk about it today. BQ9000 is an accreditation level, certification, whatever you want to describe it as. It's so critical to make sure the quality of the product because if we don't have high quality biodiesel, the industry, the user, it's going to be a problem. Secondly, the BQ9000 certification also is for marketers, and they announced this year at the national conference that even retailers, there's a way in which the retailer is going to have information this year about participation. So that is so very critical, and from my perspective, I'm not trying to jump on anybody else's toes, but our system with CountryMark was the first in the nation to really have a fully integrated injection blending system. Some organizations will use splash blending, and I don't have any experience with that. Frankly, I don't want to have any experience with that, but I can tell you directly that the injection blending, making sure that it is a good, complete, thorough, very high-quality blend is so very critical. So just making sure that people are hooking up with suppliers, making sure that the producer, the original source of the biodiesel, and it sounds like the people here that were talking earlier certainly represent that. They've got BQ9000 certification, but there are some people out there that are not doing that. I think it's very important.
Thank you. We had another question come in asking about fuel economy. How much higher or lower is the energy content for the latest B20 and B99?
This is Jeff Hughes.
Regular
this is
or gasoline.
Sorry about that. This is Jeff. One thing that we've noticed is that the BTU content per gallon for B100 tends to be a little bit lower than, say, for number 1 diesel. In other words, we have in our specification